Anxiety and time. I don't know if people think about it like this, but I do anyway. When it comes to anxiety, you got to think about time. And although people like to imply that somehow you're wrong if you're anxious, it's actually a very natural state. And particularly at this time when we are moving from one dimension to another, as we always are in different degrees, but particularly now with the aspects of things, with the with the changing times, really, as everybody feels it on whatever level, be it superficial or in depth, everybody feels a change occurring. And for me, I noticed that a lot of people, including myself, feel more anxious more regularly. And that is to be expected because of the fact that linear time is becoming more and more blurred. So you have more instances of deja vu, you have more instances of lost time. Although, to be fair, I've never really had such a drastic experience of lost time. Although, when you were young as a child, I'm sure you remember that phenomena, and that was real, by the way. So, you've got a lot of these things which can make one feel anxious because anxiety is a disconnect from time. So that's why I say it's not a bad thing per se. It's a good thing if you feel anxious, actually, because then you know something is happening, isn't it? So it's almost like it's an alarm, anxiety. Um, yeah, but it's a disconnect. It's a disconnect from time, anxiety. And so when you're in a 3D manifestation, i.e., here on Earth, or any other 3D manifestation that might be out there in whatever reality, you'll find that within that linear time that 3D constitutes, you will have times of disconnect where you, for whatever reason, be it on an astrological or spiritual or emotional, metaphysical. Remember, they're all one. It's just different names, languages. So you'll find that with with linear time becoming more and more blurred as we transition from one age to another, and with also other things progressing and the procession of things, because remember there are ages within ages. So apparently at the moment there's a lot of things happening at once, hence there's a whole blow up of consciousness, which I know is true. Everybody out there can verify that too, if you didn't believe me. You're gonna find a lot more anxiety going on. You'll even find relations. Don't forget, they say the moon causes craziness, and you know, well, not like that, if you know what I mean. But as I've said before, we are affected psychologically, emotionally, and therefore physically by many things that we cannot see. Hence the term metaphysics, meta beyond physics. So we can't see the cause, we just see the effect, which is the physics. There are many, many things going on at the moment, as always, but at the moment, if we're going to be specific to now, there are many, many things going on that affect our psyche. You're seeing a lot going on anyway in the world in terms of celebrity breakdowns and all sorts of things, and obviously people not knowing or, you know, having any insight into metaphysics whatsoever will simply look at it from a superficial level. But if you're looking at it in depth for what it is, you can actually control it, because otherwise you can end up, breaking your rope, as I like to say. Breaking your rope is simply just losing your balance so much so that the rope is broken. Remember, you're the rope, either end is life, and we're simply being pulled all the time. And the key thing is to get that pull from each side so balanced that there is no movement. Notice how we are all aware as sentient beings that the world we stand and sit on is moving at speeds that you would not be able to believe because you cannot feel it, isn't it? And that's because the universe is in perfect harmony, it's in perfect synchronicity, balance. So, although there is a lot of movement and very fast movement relative to how we perceive movement, it will not feel like we are moving. If you look up at the sky long enough and stare into one spot, not blinking, you'll notice after a while that you'll see a lot of things moving that you wouldn't have noticed before. had you not focused for long enough. Try that when you're free. And then you'll really realize that we are moving constantly. And yet, because of this perfect synchronicity, this perfect balance, this perfect harmony, you don't feel like you're moving. But you see night and day, you see different seasons, you see the birds flying from one spot to another for their bedtime, blah, blah, blah. It's crazy. So that's what we need to do. Because remember, the earth, or Gaia as some would like to call it, is a living being. And we are reproductions of that earth. So we are earths. And so we need to get ourselves in that perfect balance and harmony so that we are not constantly moving from side to side or wobbling. We are seemingly still, and yet we are astronomically fast. That's the key here. So in terms of anxiety, as I said, it's to be expected. But because it's expected, it doesn't mean you be consumed by it. Once you are aware of what anxiety really is, not necessarily from the medical standpoint, although that is very helpful, but from the standpoint of time, you will be able to deal with it better, I believe. That's where meditation comes in again. Meditation always comes in, as you notice. Meditation stills the mind. Even in the Bible, they mention meditation, if you've missed it, with Abraham or Abraham, whichever name you prefer. Sitting in the stillness and all of that, even with Jesus sitting in the stillness and all of that, we're always being pointed to finding the stillness so that we are in the moment, in the present, because as I said before, the present is the only guarantee when it comes to our linear time. And time in reality, that's why the other dimensions, they don't have linear time. It's all now, it's all present. So as we are expanding and growing ourselves on a spiritual level, and therefore all the levels, you'll find that you're getting closer and closer to that place where there isn't linear time. It's all now. And so while you are still in linear time in your physicality, your spirituality isn't so much so. So Mandela effect, all these other phenomena, it's all related to time and the fact that linear time is becoming more and more blurred. And so whenever you do feel anxious, people, anyone watching this video, be it now, be it in the past, be it in the future, anytime you feel anxious, anytime you feel almost out of body, because that is a key thing. Anxiety is an out of body experience because there is a disconnect. And if you are unaware, unknowing, it can do a lot of damage. On the other hand, if you are aware, as in you are knowing, you don't even need medication for it. All you need to do is use your mind. Because remember, you have two minds. You have the carnal mind and you have the real mind, your real self. And your real self is always there observing the carnal mind, which you think is you by your ego. So when your ego starts to get anxious because it's confused by this wave coming from the galaxy, picture a wave coming from the galaxy or from the other dimensions, coming into our and mixing it up. Our linear time will become frazzled. It's just like when they say, the sun rays, they can interfere with our satellites and all sorts of telecommunications can be affected. It's the same thing with this time. Real time, as in now, from the other dimensions, and obviously mixing with our linear time, past, present, future, it creates a whole gap of things. There's a lot of holes, a lot of portals created, all sorts of phenomena. People seeing ghosts and all of that. It's again time being sort of confused because we're not really in linear time. We're just now. It's just our carnal minds, because we like to think of things linearly. We will think of the past, the present, and the future. But the only guarantee, the only, certainty is now. And so, as I said before, when this wave arrives of real time coming and, interacting with our time, linear time, this confusion can create anxiety in the body, in the psyche, in your emotional state. Whether you see it or not, it's there. There are many things that you know you cannot see with your naked eye, that if you put on special glasses or whatever, you can see other things, even in terms of light, right? So there are things that you cannot see that are there. So this being one of those things, time, it can cause this confusion with your body clock, making you feel nervous, making you feel sort of like, oh, you really need to get ahead of time, or making you dwell on the past, because even that is anxiety. I like to refer to anxiety as both a problem of the future and the past. And so you need to center yourself whenever you feel anxious. So meditate, take your slow, deep breaths, and try and center yourself. Think of nothing, because when you're anxious, you're thinking of a lot of things, but you don't know what you're thinking about, because this real time from the other dimensions, which includes you and your whole existence, comes and interacts with your linear time, the time that you think is real now, past, present, future, which also exists you. So this creates a whole mist, a whole fog in your being, in your aura, and that can throw a lot of people off, me included. But if you are aware of this, and if you take the necessary measures and practices to balance yourself, just like the earth does on its axis, the earth spinning, revolving around the sun revolving around the center of the galaxy, there's a lot of movement, and yet you would think we're still. You'd think the earth is still because it's so balanced. That's what you need to do with your own body. You need to synchronize your body so much so it appears you're still. Those gurus, those yogis, those people who are so-called still on the outside, believe me, they are the forces to be reckoned with. In reality, on the inside, just think of the planets, think of the earth that you are on right now when you think about your body, and you'll get this. Peace.